The woman standing outside my apartment was the last person I expected to see. My wife's sister. She hadn't spoken to me in almost 7 months. Not since the funeral. She looked at me and said something that made my stomach drop. My sister is gone, but I came to pay her debt. I just stared at her. What debt? She looked past me. At the framed photograph sitting on the shelf behind me. A photograph of my wife, Hannah. Then she whispered, the one she never told you about. My name is Ethan. I was 28 when this happened. I lived in a small apartment in Raleigh, North Carolina. I worked maintenance for an apartment complex during the day. It wasn't exciting, but it paid the bills. And before Hannah died, I actually liked my life. We weren't rich. We weren't perfect. But we were happy. At least, I thought we were. Hannah was 26. She had this habit of humming when she cooked. She never realized she was doing it. She'd hum the same 3 lines of a song over and over until I finally complained. Then she'd laugh and say, "You married me. This is your fault." Those little things are what I miss most. Not the big vacations. Not the anniversary dinners. Just her leaving cabinet doors open. Her stealing my hoodies. Her sending me texts from the grocery store asking what kind of cereal we already had. Those stupid little moments. Because when someone dies, you don't miss the dramatic memories. You miss Tuesday night. You miss ordinary life. Hannah had one sister. Megan. They were only 2 years apart. And they were complicated. Sometimes they talked every day. Sometimes they went weeks without speaking. I never understood why. Whenever I asked Hannah, she'd say, "We love each other. That's enough." I believed her. Then Hannah died. And everything I thought I understood about my life disappeared. The morning after the funeral, I woke up and reached for her without thinking. My hand touched an empty pillow. I stared at it for a long time. That was the moment it became real. She wasn't coming back. For months, I barely functioned. I went to work. Came home. Ate whatever was easiest. Then sat on the couch until I fell asleep. I stopped answering friends. Stopped returning calls. Even my family couldn't reach me sometimes. And Megan disappeared too. I thought she blamed me. Maybe she thought I should have noticed something. Maybe she thought I could have saved Hannah. I didn't know. Then, 7 months after the funeral, she showed up. Holding an old brown envelope. She stepped inside. Her eyes moved around the apartment. She looked at the couch. The kitchen. The photograph. Then she said, "She left this for me." I frowned. "What is it?" Megan sat down. "A letter." She pulled it out. Hannah wrote it 2 weeks before she died. My heart started pounding. "Why didn't you give it to me?" Megan looked at the floor. "Because I was angry." "At me?" "No." She swallowed. "At her." That answer confused me. Megan opened the letter. "She asked me to help you." I stared at her. "With what?" Megan took a shaky breath. "Money." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I didn't understand. She explained that 2 years earlier, when I'd been unemployed for several months, Hannah had borrowed money from her. I remembered that time. I remembered feeling like a failure. I remembered Hannah telling me not to worry. She'd told me she'd handled everything. She never said she'd borrowed money. How much? Megan told me. It was enough to make me sit down. I looked at Hannah's picture. "She paid you back, didn't she?" Megan nodded. "Every dollar." "Then what's the debt?" Megan looked at me. "That isn't the debt." I felt a cold feeling in my chest. "Then what is?" She pulled another piece of paper from the envelope. "Hannah wrote that she was afraid you'd stop living after she died." I couldn't speak. Megan continued. "She asked me to check on you." I shook my head. "That's why you disappeared?" Megan's eyes filled with tears. "I couldn't do it." "Why?" "Because every time I saw you, I saw her." That was the first time I realized Megan wasn't angry with me. She was grieving too. Just differently. After that night, she started coming around. Not every day. Just sometimes. She'd bring groceries. Fix something around the apartment. Sit quietly while I watched TV. She never acted like she was trying to replace Hannah. And that was exactly why I trusted her. One night, she found me sitting on the kitchen floor. I hadn't turned the lights on. She asked, "You okay?" I said, "No." She sat beside me. Neither of us spoke for almost a minute. Then I said, "I don't know who I am without her." Megan looked down. "I don't know who I am without her either." That was the first time we cried together. Not because of anything romantic. Because we were both missing the same person. And somehow, that made the apartment feel less empty. Weeks passed. We started talking more. She told me stories about Hannah as a kid. I told her things Hannah had done after we got married. We laughed. Then we'd feel guilty for laughing. Sometimes we'd stop talking completely. There was one night when Megan was about to leave. She stood at the door. Then she said, "Do you know what Hannah was most afraid of?" "What?" "That you'd remember her only as the woman you lost." I looked at her. "What does that mean?" "She wanted you to remember the woman you loved." That sentence broke something inside me. Because I had been doing exactly what Hannah feared. I had turned my memories of her into a shrine. I wasn't remembering her life. I was worshipping her death. And I didn't know how to stop. If you're still listening, I'd really appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribed. I don't usually talk about something this personal. But if you've ever lost someone and felt like moving forward meant betraying them, you'll understand why this story stayed with me. A few weeks later, something happened that changed everything. Megan called me at 1:17 in the morning. She was crying. I asked what was wrong. She said, "I found something." "What?" "Another letter." She came over. She was holding Hannah's old phone. I hadn't seen it since the funeral. There was a recording saved on it. Megan handed me the phone. "You should hear it." I pressed play. Hannah's voice came through the speaker. Soft. Tired. But unmistakably hers. "Ethan." I stopped breathing. "If you're hearing this, I'm probably not there anymore." I paused the recording. I couldn't continue. Megan whispered, "Keep going." So I did. Hannah talked about our marriage. About our first apartment. About the terrible couch we bought because it was cheap. About the night I proposed. Then she said, "I need you to promise me something." Her voice cracked. "Don't spend the rest of your life trying to repay me for loving you." I closed my eyes. She continued, "You don't owe me a perfect life after I'm gone." There was a long silence. Then she said, "You just owe yourself a life." The recording ended. I started crying. Megan did too. And then something happened that neither of us expected. Megan reached for my hand. I held hers. For a moment, neither of us let go. There was something in that silence. Something neither of us wanted to name. Then Megan pulled her hand away. "We can't." I knew what she meant. I nodded. "No." She stood up. "I don't want the last thing Hannah gave us to become something ugly." That sentence stayed with me. The next morning, Megan stopped answering my messages. 3 days passed. Then a week. I finally drove to her apartment. She opened the door. She looked exhausted. "I think I need to leave," she said. "Leave where?" "Somewhere else." "Why?" She looked at me. "Because I'm starting to care about you for reasons that have nothing to do with Hannah." I felt my chest tighten. She continued. "And that scares me." I wanted to tell her I understood. But the truth was, I didn't. Because part of me wanted her to stay. And that made me feel like the worst person alive. Megan stepped closer to the doorway. "I love my sister." "I know. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering whether I stayed close to you because I loved you." She paused. "Or because I couldn't let go of her." I had no answer. So I just said, "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "Don't be." Then she hugged me. It was brief. Quiet. And somehow more painful than anything else. She left 2 days later. I didn't see her again for almost a year. During that year, I finally started changing. I went back to the gym. Started cooking. Started seeing friends. I even moved into a smaller apartment. Not because I wanted to forget Hannah. Because I finally understood that remembering someone and living inside their absence were two different things. Then, one afternoon, I received a letter. From Megan. Inside was a photograph. It was Hannah and Megan as teenagers. They were sitting on the hood of an old car, laughing. On the back, Megan had written. She would have hated that picture. I smiled for the first time in days. Then I saw the final sentence. I finally understand what she meant. There was one more line. She didn't ask me to take care of you. She asked me to remind you that you were still alive. I sat there holding that photograph. And suddenly, I understood the real debt. It was never money. It was never a promise. It wasn't even about me. Hannah had spent her last weeks trying to make sure the two people she loved most didn't destroy themselves trying to survive her death. Megan thought she owed her sister something. I thought I owed Hannah something. But neither of us did. We were just grieving. And sometimes grief makes you believe pain is the only proof that your love was real. I never saw Megan again after that letter. I don't know if she ever married. I don't know where she lives now. Sometimes I still wonder. But I don't call. Because some people come into your life for a reason. And sometimes loving them means knowing when not to pull them back into it. I still have Hannah's final recording. I still listen to it once in a while. Not because I want to hear her goodbye. But because I need to hear the part where she tells me to live. And the strangest thing is, For a long time, I thought losing Hannah was the saddest thing that ever happened to me. I was wrong. The saddest part was realizing how close I came to turning the love she gave me into another reason to stay broken. Megan came to my door saying she had a debt to pay. But she was never the one who owed anything. Neither was I. The debt was the guilt we carried for surviving. And eventually, we had to let it go. I still miss Hannah. I probably always will. But now, when I think about her, I don't picture the hospital. I don't picture the funeral. I picture her standing in our tiny kitchen, humming the wrong lyrics to some stupid song. And I remember what she wanted. Not for me to wait for her. Not for me to replace her. Just to keep living. Because sometimes the hardest way to honor someone you lost is to finally allow yourself to be happy without them.